Welcome back to Spicy BL Reads. I hope you enjoyed the previous chapters, and if you haven't checked it out before, make sure to revisit. Maybe check out some of my videos on the playlist, Vegas and Pete playlist. And yeah, today I'm going to continue on in chapter 4 of I Kidnapped My Clueless Crush, but I'll make him want me. So we're going to start off with Vegas's point of view. I sit on the edge of the bed as Pete stands before me. His little body is shaking slightly. He had a terrified look on his face, and although he doesn't voice it, his eyes plead to me to stop this. But I won't stop. I've waited too long and have been patient enough with him, especially now that I have other important matters to attend to. I'm getting married after all. Pete grabs the hem of the shirt I'd prepared for him before his arrival. I actually had a lot of clothing purchased for him, not knowing how long I was going to keep him. But now it doesn't seem like I'll be keeping him long at all. By the end of the week, I plan to return to the city. And depending on how Pete pleases me these next few days, we'll decide if he gets to live and return home or if his body gets buried in these mountains. Pete takes a gulp and slowly starts to pull the shirt up, revealing a little of his flawless, creamy skin inch by inch. His skin should be marked with my teeth, including his nipples. Oops. uh, by the way, if I hadn't told you guys before, this is like rated R. So I licked my lips just seeing those little buds perking, and I could feel my drool swelling, growing to its full length. I wasn't lying when I said I finished earlier. I watched him shower and I pet my rabbit until my happy sauce coated the monitor. Everything about this man is just that sensual. When the shirt is completely off Pete, he puts his in front of him, trying to cover himself up. Come here, I say. Pete takes small, timid steps towards me and step a foot away from me. I reach out and grab his wrist, pulling him between my legs and making him gasp. I grab the shirt and rip it from his fingers before tossing it aside. Don't be shy. I've already seen all of you, I tell him. I run my hands up his torso, stopping at his buds. With my fingers, I pinch his buds, just hard enough to elicit a small cry from him. His body also shivered, like beneath my touch, which pleased me very much. Pete may be innocent, but his body is sensitive to the touch. My hands fall to the button of his pants, and I undo it, including the zipper too. I let the pants fall down to his ankle. And he was left with nothing but a boxer on now. I look up to Pete, who had his eyes shut tightly and his teeth sink into his bottom lips. He breathes heavily with his hands fisted at his side. I smiled and I grab his friend in my palm. He hisses, but he keeps his eyes shut. His friend is still flaccid, but I'll change that very soon. I'll have him screaming my name soon enough. I hook my fingers into his boxer and also let it fall to his ankle. Pete's beautiful friend stared at me. This is off topic, but it's giving that whole joke about someone's friend being like Medusa's snake. When you stare at it, you turn to stone. Okay, enough of that. Where was I? So, yeah, Pete's beautiful friend stared me in the face already. Semi hard, just from my little touch. Ever got your friend kissed, Pete? I asked, even though I know he probably never did. I didn't wait for an answer, and instead, I squatted and I wrapped my hands around his hands around his cheeks, and I swallowed him whole. I hear Pete let out a little grunt, and his body stiffened with my hold. I ignored him, and I wrapped my mouth around his slowly rising friend. I knew Pete was close when he could no longer hold his sounds of excitement and heavy panting. His voice caresses my ears and sent a thrilling sensation down my friend. He digs his fingers into my shoulders and throws his head back, crying out. I feel the first indication of his friend's crying and it hitting the back of my throat. You know, his essence was salty and sweet, and I swallowed it all. When Pete's body stopped shaking in my arms, I finally let him go. His friend slides out of my mouth, coated in his own juices, if you will, and my saliva. I stand up and turn us around, pushing Pete onto the bed. Immediately, I strip myself of my clothing as Pete stares at me, still breathing heavily. His cheeks are pretty pink and gaze hooded, and when his eyes lands on my rock-hard friend, he sucks in a shaky breath and backs away. Where are you going? I ask, getting on the bed. You had your fun. Now it's my turn. Pete blushes harder. Embarrassment at what he just done shines in his orbs. I don't know how to, Pete says, his back hitting the headboard. Did he think I was going to make him, you know, kiss my friend? No, that's a sweet idea for another time. I have other plans for him. I want my friend and his virgin little back door, and I want it now. I spit into my palm and start petting my friend with it, making sure it's nice and wet. You just have to lay down and, make your legs divide, and I'll take care of the rest. I grab his ankle and pull him back to me. Pete starts to panic and struggle once more. I quickly pin him down, leaning on top of him. Don't make me hurt you, Pete. Like it or not, I will be in you. This can be pleasurable for the both of us if you stop struggling. I said, leaning down close to his face. A single teardrop falls from the corner of his eyes, but he stops moving. Will it hurt? He whispers, looking at me. Mm. I reach to wipe his tear away. There's no point of lying to him, but it will feel even better. Pete closes his eyes and swallows a breath of air before closing them again and opening them. Just get it over with then, Pete says, turning his head away. If he thinks to hide from me, he's wrong. I turn his face back to me and press my lips to his. Grabbing his chin, I move his mouth open and put my tongue into it, thrust it even, making him taste himself on my tongue. The taste of his essence mixed with the sweet taste of the inside of his mouth is enough to make any sane person go mad. He really is a drug, made for love, sex, and sin. I desperately kiss him even harder as I grind my naked friend against his own. The friction is enough to make me pop alone if I allow myself. Instead, my fingers find his tight little back door, and I push a finger in without a warning. Pete gasps in my mouth, and his body stills beneath me. Relax, I say, breaking the kiss. It hurts, he says, barely above a whisper. You have to relax, it will get better. I tell him, but didn't wait for him to adjust before pushing another finger inside of his back door. His walls squeeze my fingers so tightly. I need him to loosen if the tip of my friend even plans to fit in there. Please take it out, Pete pants. His hands move to push me. That only made me, you know, use my finger to widen him harder. Vegas, please! If I take out my fingers, I'm replacing them with my friend. I tell him, making his eyes widen. Not giving him a chance to reply, I capture his lips once more. I thrust my tongue down his throat as I continue to widen him with my fingers, loosening him up. Pete's hand grips at my arms tightly, causing little pain. With my other hand, I find his bud and start playing with it, pinching and plucking at the little bud. That seems to do it, because his cries turns into soft little noises of approval that I devour with my lips. Soon enough, he loosens enough for me to fit 3 fingers, and his friend starts to swell once more. I need to be in him now. I quickly remove my fingers and, not giving his orifice a chance to close up, I thrust the full length of my hard, naked friend all the way into his warm backyard. Ugh, fuck. I was home. I growl loudly, and a shattering cry leaves Pete's lips as my friend pierces the deepest part of him. Pete's little body shakes beneath me, and his nails dig into my arms. His eyes shut tightly as tears streak down the sides of his face, and he breathes heavily. He looks like a damn angel being ravaged by the devil. And yes, I am going to ravage the hell out of this body. Your walls are sucking me in, I breathe, tracing his face with the tip of my nose. So warm and tight. I might get addicted, Pete. I pull out almost all the way before pushing myself all the way there again. Pete shouts out once more before biting down on his lip. Vegas! Pete calls my name, and I look into his teary eyes. Is it painful? Do you want me to stop? I asked, cupping the side of his face and pushing into him again. Yes, he nods, grunting, making me chuckle. Too bad I don't want to stop. I don't think I want to stop ever. He feels too damn good, and his innocent expressions are turning me on like no other. Pete's lips tremble, but he doesn't say anything. I get up and grab one of his legs and hook it over my shoulder before leaning down to him again. Mm, Make me pop and I'll stop. I take his lips with mine and I start moving my hips and start slamming it into him relentlessly. Pete cries out into my mouth, but I don't care. My need to devour and destroy his body consumes my mind as his orifice wraps tightly, suckling onto my friend, making me lose my mind. Pete bites down on my tongue once again, making me break the kiss. He looks at me with scared, pained eyes like he didn't mean to do it. So instead of getting mad, I smirk down at him. I turn his head to the side and stare down at the vein pulsing on his neck before taking the skin between my lips and suckling hard. Pete half moans, half cries as I bite down, making sure I leave my mark behind. Once his skin is nice and red, I find his Adam's apple and suckle on the skin there too. His cries from his throat vibrates nicely against my tongue. I then work my way down his chest to his butts I've been dying to taste. Mm, I suckled a bud into my mouth and swirl it around, gaining a sound of approval from Pete. I hum satisfied. He may be in pain, but his body was also enjoying this. His hard friend against my skin was proof. I grab Pete's smooth, hard friend and start petting him as I tease his buds with my mouth. Switching from bud to bud, at this point, Pete's no longer crying but approving loudly, just like I wanted. His arms find the back of my head as he pulls at my hair, not hard enough to make me bald, but enough to make me want to dance on him even harder. These analogies. And so I do just that. I pushed into him hard, making him throw his head back against the bed. I make my way back to his face and curl my free hand behind his head, making him look up at me with his now headed gaze. I'm going to pop so hard in you. I slam my lips against Pete as a hard shudder racks through my whole body down to my very toes. My pop rushes out of me, filling him up. Pete loudly approves into my mouth as I feel his own hot spent spilling between our stomachs. His nails run down my back, and I'm sure he left his own marks behind, but that only made me arrive harder. Damn, he's hot. Pete's arms drop from my body to his side. His chest heaves heavily beneath me. I remove myself from him as the last of my spend enters his body, not giving him a break. I flip him onto his stomach and position myself at his back door once more. Wait, he said, turning his head back to look at me. You said you'd stop after arriving. Yeah, but I didn't say how many times, though. I thrust my still hard friend back into him again. For the rest of the night, I continued to ravage him until my body no longer wanted to produce any more spent. And still, I kept my friend buried in him as I hold him close to me. No one, no one ever made me feel this much pleasure. Okay, so that was Vegas's point of view, and now I'm going to mention Pete's point of view. I struggle to open my eyes, and a soft groan escapes my lips as consciousness settles in. My body is sore from head to toe, especially my behind. When my eyes fully open, I realize it's already morning. I try moving, but groan in pain again before being pulled back into a warm embrace and arms tightly locking over me. Vegas held my body to his, spooning me from behind. Where are you going? Vegas said in a low, groggy voice. His hand slid down my still birthday suit, leaving goosebumps wherever he touches. He stops at my friend and palms me before slowly petting me there. Vegas. I can feel his friend hardening behind me, or should I say inside me. Did he sleep with himself inside me the whole night? There's no way. Vegas pulls out and thrusts into me, halting my thoughts. Vegas, please. I can't do this again. Yes, you can. He whispers in my ear, sending a chill down my spine. Just lay there. I'll do the work. Please, no, I said weakly. My eyes begin to burn as reality sets in of everything that happened last night. He took from me something I kept close and guarded for the right person. He took it without a single care in the world, and I gave it to him, although not willingly. But even if I wasn't willing, there were times that what he did with my body felt so good, and that makes me hate what happened even more. I thought he'd be done after last night, but now he wants more. Begging doesn't work with me. Save your voice because I'm about to extract every pleasurable cry from you. Vegas thrust into me from behind. My tears left my eyes and I shut them tightly. I bit down as my lips as he has his way with me once more. After Vegas was done, he leaves me alone in the room and disappears. I was dead ass grateful for his absence. It took me a while, but I got myself out of bed and into the shower. I didn't want to shower with the camera eyes on me, but I wanted more than anything to wash away his touch. But no matter how much I washed, the bite marks he left behind stayed. The whole time I turned my back to the camera, and also the whole time my tears fell, but he won't see it as the raining water quickly washes them away. So when I finished, I put on the robe and exit the bathroom just as the maid from yesterday, Cindy, walks in. She carries a bag with her and also a tray of food. Good morning. Can Vegas asked me to drop off some clothes and for you to have breakfast in your room today, Cindy says, bringing the bag over to the bed and then settling the tray on the little coffee table. Would you like anything else? Cindy asks, looking at me nervously. I shake my head at her. I'm sorry about yesterday. I'm so sorry. This time, she shakes her head at me and gives me a sad little smile, making me feel more guilty. Don't worry about it. It's not your fault. That's right. It's that monster's fault. Cindy quickly shakes her head at my words and walks towards me. Please don't say that. You can get in trouble, she whispers. What more can he do to me aside from killing me? He already took everything else away from me, I replied. Her eyes lands on my neck, and I know she can see the marks there and guesses what happened between us. Vegas isn't a horrible person, you know. How can you say that after what he did to you yesterday? I owe him my life. He saved me from human traffickers or, yeah, from traffickers and allowed me to work here. He may be hard and tough, but all of him isn't evil. She says, looking at me. I'm sorry, but I can't think the same. He didn't save me from anything. Instead, he took me and stole from me. I look away, already feeling my eyes burning once more. Just listen to what he wants. He won't hurt you then, Cindy proposed. I have to go now. Please eat your breakfast. Otherwise, he may get upset again when he comes back. He's not here? I ask, turning back to look at her, and she nods. Cindy, you must help me get out of here. I grab her hands and shake her a little. Please, I'm begging you. Cindy pulls away. You know I can't do that. He'll have my head. I sigh, disappointed. She's absolutely right. I can't put her in any more danger just for me. At least, tell me how I can get out of here. I'm sorry, Pete. That's your name, right? I'm sorry, but I really can't help you. She turns around and walks away, exiting the room, and I can hear a lock from behind the door. A cry escapes my lips and I let my tears fall. I look over to the tray and notice that even the utensils were plastic. He really didn't want me to have any weapons of any kind. I quickly dress, finish the breakfast, and return to bed. There was nothing else to do in the room. Cindy returns much later and grabs a tray, replacing it with a new one for lunch. This time, I ignore her, not giving her any attention. Yet, I still ate the food after she left, so he can't blame her or anything else if I don't eat it. I spent the rest of the day gazing out of the window, wondering how I could get out of here. By the time the sun disappears from, behind the mountains, Sydney then reappears. Kun Vegas is back and he asked you to go down for dinner. Cindy informs me. I got it, I replied, not looking at her. Pete, if you want to get out of here alive, you must please him, she warns me. I'm starting to think death is better than being locked in this room all day or being used by him. I nonchalantly say, Is that so? I hear Vegas's voice and immediately goosebumps spread through my skin. I look up at him and almost flinch back. Leave us, Cindy. Yes, sir. She gives me a quick worried look before scurrying out of the room, closing the door behind her. So you'd rather die than have me treat you nicely, feeding you 3 times a day, clothing you, and bringing you immense pleasure we both know you enjoyed. He slowly stalks towards me, where I sat on a chair by the window. Vegas stops in front of me and reaches a hand out to me. I close my eyes and flinch back, thinking he'll strike me. Instead, he grips my chin and tilts my head up. Look, I scare you already, and you dare speak of death? He said. Open your eyes, Pete. When I do, he bends down, stopping close to my face. If you want to die so badly, I'll grant you your wish after I'm done with you. Vegas crushed his lips to mine, stunning me. I didn't expect a kiss from him, not after looking so scary and threatening me with death. Quickly, I snap out of it and try to pull away from him, but he grabs me by the arms and pulls me to my feet. Breaking the kiss, he drags me over to the bed and tosses me on it. I quickly turn around and back away from him. He doesn't stop me, but starts taking off his clothing instead. Vegas, don't do this again, I shouted, already fearing what's to come. He ignores me, but gets on the bed instead. He grabs my ankle and pulls me toward him. I try my best to break free, but I'm weak to his strength. He pins my body under him and starts attacking my neck. Vegas, stop, I cried. I'm hungry, I yelled, not really thinking what I'm saying. Surprisingly, he stops kissing my neck and turns to look at me. I'm hungry, I say again. Can we go down and eat first? Vegas' jaw tightens like he's in deep thought. And then he did the unthinkable and gets off me. That actually worked. Get up and let's go before I change my mind. Yes. I quickly shuffle off the bed as Vegas starts putting his clothes on again. I can't believe that actually worked. I couldn't help but stare at Vegas curiously. What? Changed your mind? Want me to eat you instead? He said, looking me up and down. No, I quickly declined. Food. I want food. He walks up to me after dressing and holds me close before dragging me out of the room and down to the dining room. We returned to the room after dinner, and this time I had no excuse to use. Vegas stares at me with hungry eyes like he didn't just eat and has been starved for days. I nervously bit the inside of my cheeks as I sat on the bed watching him watch me. Tell me something, I begin to say as he makes a move for me. Will you really kill me after you're done with me? Vegas looks at me with his piercing gaze like he can see right through me. Why? Don't want to die anymore? He asks after some time. No, but if I am going to die anyways, then I'll fight you on this, I boldly announce, because yes, if he plans to kill me anyways, there's no point of giving my body to him. Yet, I can feel my palms already starting to sweat and hear my heart beat loudly in my ears. A low chuckle escapes his throat, and he looks at me proudly. I tilt my head at him, not sure what his reaction means. Vegas removes his shirt and starts swirling his neck before cracking it on each side. Then fight me, Pete. He smiles before jumping on me. And that is the conclusion of chapter 4. And this chapter, it's definitely a long one in comparison to the previous chapters before. And of course, there's a few things that stood out to me about this entire chapter. So, starting from the beginning, right? There's an obvious, disturbing dynamic of control and vulnerability between Vegas and Pete. So, with the with the narration from Vegas's point of view, it's already showing that he exhibits like a domineering and really sinister mindset towards Pete. He looks at Pete as obviously an object to possess and control, and he views Pete in a way where he's obviously obsessed with him in a very unhealthy way, and he has no problems with having Pete by force if he can't have him by will. And he I think it says somewhere in the beginning where Vegas says that he's going to get married anyway. So maybe he's already trying to groom him and constantly dominate him as a reflection of an odd juxtaposition of marriage and personal desires. So he says something about marriage, and I'm not really sure if he plans to do that with Pete or if there's going to be a plot twist later down the line where Vegas is going to marry somebody else and he's just trying to keep Pete as a plaything. But that stood out to me. Another thing that stood out with the odd controlling dynamic between them is that Pete's portrayed as, obviously terrified and vulnerable, and he unfortunately has to stoop down to a level where he feels like he has to plead and beg with Vegas constantly, which Vegas loves to revel in and disregard his pleading. And it's pretty obvious that Vegas's intentions towards Pete are very manipulative. He keeps putting Pete in positions where whatever happens to Pete is dependent on how well he complies with Vegas's demand in a very limited time frame. So he tries to control him based off of when and how he eats. Obviously, he tries to control pointlessly Pete's decision making with sexual advances, and he has no problems using other people to he has no problems like punishing other people and using other people to emotionally manipulate Pete into giving in to Vegas's demands. Sick, I know, but it's Vegas. Are we really surprised? Another thing is that there's like a focus on a physicality and the sensuality, and it's, as previously mentioned, portraying a very disturbing blend of desire and coercion. As mentioned, he really has no problem having Pete by force if he can't have him by will. And it should be pretty interesting to see how that dynamic plays out in the rest of the other chapters. So, yeah, overall, it highlights obvious themes of objectification, power, consent, and it's also raising questions about like emotional and ethical implications of those interactions between them. Also, there are very obvious and graphic descriptions of consent and power dynamics in a sexual encounter. There's usually like a significant emphasis on consent when P expresses like uncertainty and fear about the next steps, revealing like his vulnerability, while Vegas reassures and constantly pushes his boundaries as if he's presenting the illusion of choice to Pete. Another manipulation move. And another thing was that there's like an exchange of complex emotions. So it includes like desire, reluctance, and ultimately a sense of inevitability as both characters navigate their role. So I think he's trying the sexual route of trying to purposely confuse Pete. So what I mean is he wants to confuse Pete, right? So he wants to give Pete an immense and unknown pleasure that he can't deny. And I think he wants to use Pete's pleasure against him eventually, like guilt trip him, like, haha, I made you come. Sorry if that might be graphic, but I made you pop, if you will. And you can tell me that you don't like what's going on and that I'm forcing you and everything of the sort, but your body is obviously enjoying it. Or he could use that thing that men usually do sometimes, where he purposely makes Pete experience pleasure and try to manipulate him into feeling like Pete has no business complaining about how Vegas extracts that kind of pleasure from him. It's all like a whole mind F situation that's going on. Yeah. And what's another theme that stood out with me? Mm, 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 mm. Aside from like, intense, passionate encounters where, the encounter concludes with Vegas asserting dominance and he continues to engage with Pete despite initial climax. It's highlighting a commitment to their physical connection. So I don't know. It's almost like Vegas is trying to use sex as a gateway to soften Pete up and to communicate to Pete, like, hey, I'm not a bad guy. Look at what I'm doing with your body and look at what I'm making you feel. Stuff like that. So, yeah. Um, as you could tell already, this chapter highlighted quite a few scenes or moments of lots of sex, though not willing, But yeah, it's just a very interesting way to highlight the lengths and the depths that Vegas would go to achieve some type of intimacy with Pete. His very, very odd obsession with Pete. And with the morning after reflection, obviously Pete wakes up in pain and discomfort after a very disturbing night with Vegas, feeling physically and emotionally violated. And Vegas continues to exert control over him, disregarding Pete's past Pete's feelings and past boundaries. So, of course, that would prompt feelings of anger and shame in Pete. I mean, how could it not? And Pete experiences obviously conflicting emotions. He's torn between the pleasure experienced and the violation of consent. And after Vegas leaves, Pete attempts to wash away the physical evidence of the encounter, but he is struggling with lingering emotional scars. And after he got out of the shower, that's where he encountered Cindy again. After in the previous chapter, Vegas practically ordered a beat down on her because Pete didn't do what Vegas wanted him to do. He's petty and once again trying to assert dominance over Pete by any means necessary, even if he has to use people that Pete likes and trusts against Pete. So, yeah, after he got out of the shower, Cindy arrives with clothes and food, and she's obviously, showing empathy towards Pete's situation, hinting at a sense of guilt and misunderstanding regarding everything that transpired. So, with that being said, Pete took that as an invitation to see if he could convince Cindy to help him escape. I mean, obviously, Pete feels trapped and resentful, and he obviously believes that his captor, Vegas, is responsible for both of their suffering, Pete's and Cindy's suffering. And to Pete's very much understood annoyance, Cindy's acknowledging that Vegas, even though he does have a dark side, she is emphasizing that he saved her from a very dark past. So it's obviously creating some type of moral dilemma. And Pete's, as I mentioned, he's desperately trying to find a way out of the dilemma, but it didn't even make any sense because Cindy already feels a sense of loyalty to Vegas, whether it's out of fear or genuine gratitude. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's both. But seeing as though she's dead set on being loyal to Vegas, Pete eventually had to let go the whole notion of seeing if he could convince Cindy to help him escape this hellhole that he was practically forced to be a part of. So the looming presence of Vegas, it creates an atmosphere of fear and control, and he's always demanding compliance, and he's always doing subtle and overt things to reinforce to Pete that there is a power dynamic at play and that he's always trying to subtly communicate a message to Pete that Pete's at the bottom where the dynamic is concerned. So, yeah, with that being said, another thing or another theme that stood out with me towards the ending of the chapter was tension and desire. So, the narrative, it features a disturbing interaction between Pete and Vegas, right? It's always Their interactions are always filled with fear and desire. the desire mostly and heavily on Vegas's part. And Vegas confronts Pete about his apparent willingness to die rather than to accept kindness, which is bullshit, BS. He is just doing that thing again where, if you're in a toxic situation, the person that's doing the stuff towards you is like, oh, how could you express displeasure at everything I'm doing for you? You should be grateful, da 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 da. Basically, trying to invalidate your experiences and gaslighting you into thinking that you're just overreacting and you're actually in a very privileged situation, even though you don't feel privileged. And you don't feel privileged because you're not in a privileged situation. And with that being said, when he confronted Pete about the whole, oh, so you want to die thing, Vegas unexpectedly kissed Pete, and I don't know, he just loses control with Pete. Every time he kisses him, it's always like aggressive and intense desire that will always shock Pete. It would shock me too. Like, I don't know if one minute you want to kill me, if you hate me, I don't know what's going on, type of stuff. And in response to Vegas, like his advances, Pete lied and said that he was hungry. He wanted to eat some food. And that's when Vegas unreluctantly agreed to go downstairs with Pete and have some dinner and come back up. So by the time they come back up in the room from dinner, Pete already knows what's going to happen. There's no more excuses he could use to ward Vegas off of him. And so, Vegas being Vegas, he takes both of them coming back upstairs from dinner as a playful challenge. So, that scene depicts like a playful interaction between both of them, highlighting a sense of camaraderie. Odd, I know. So Vegas displays confidence by removing his shirt and preparing to engage in some playful fun. It's a shame that I can't do too much cursing on YouTube. I might fix that in the future, but for now. And yeah, he's showing playfulness by like removing his shirt, staring at Pete, stalking him like Pete's prey. And it's like the invitation to fight indicates a lighthearted or competitive spirit between, I mean, like it indicates a lighthearted or competitive spirit rather than genuine hostility. And Pete feels uncertain about Vegas's intentions, suggesting an element of surprise in their dynamic, like the part where Pete lets it be known, listen, I'm tired of fighting for my life between the both of us. Like, if you're not gonna let me go, I'm going to fight you to the death. Like, I'm not going to willingly, I'm not gonna willingly sleep with you, type of stuff. Like, I'm going to fight you every single time. And Vegas, being Vegas, um, he does not care. If anything, he takes it as a playful invitation to see how long Pete can resist them because in his mind, like he's gonna do what he can to get what he wants from Pete anyway. So that's the end of the chapter, and that's a little breakdown of what I read. Um, I would love to know from you guys what you think of this chapter, and I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, have you guys ever been a part of a dynamic before where you were trapped unknowingly and unwillingly in a toxic situation where every little thing, it seemed like the person who claimed to care about you or like you or whatever would do everything they can to control how you interact with them by any means necessary. If they can't threaten you, and that, if they try to threaten you and that doesn't work, then they'll move along to going after people that you care about or people that you just built a bond with. They will try any old thing. So, yeah, let me guys know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.